I never used to be scared of Christmas music. I used to think the worst thing about December was the cold that somehow gets into your bones, and the way the sun disappears before you've even finished lunch. But after what happened 2 years ago, I can't hear carolers without my stomach turning. This story happened in a small town in the Midwest. The kind of place where everyone waves, where houses have those plastic reindeer in the yard, and where the local radio station plays the same 10 Christmas songs on repeat for an entire month. I lived there with my fiancé, Mark. We were renting a small white house near the edge of town, backed up against a patch of woods that locals called the Old Trail. It wasn't really a trail anymore, more like a rough line through the trees that teenagers used for bonfires. Mark worked nights at a warehouse about 30 minutes away. During December, he was doing overtime, so most nights I was alone until 3 or 4 in the morning. That's important, because I think whoever it was, they knew. The first night it happened was December 12th. I remember the date because it was the day we put up our tree. Mark had helped me string lights and hang ornaments. We argued, like couples do, about whether the stars should lean slightly left or right. Then he kissed my forehead, put on his work jacket, and headed out. By 10 p.m., I was in sweatpants, sitting on the couch with hot cocoa, scrolling through my phone. The house was quiet except for the heater clicking on and off, and the faint buzz of Christmas lights. Then I heard it. At first, I thought it was the TV in the neighbor's house. But the sound was too close, too clear. Singing. It was soft, like it was being carried through the cold air, and it was cheerful. Silent night, holy night. I froze, holding my phone half raised. It sounded like one voice. A man's voice. It was coming from outside. I got up and walked to the front window. I pulled the curtain back just enough to peek out. The street was empty. Snow covered the ground in smooth white layers, reflecting the yellow glow from the streetlights. No one was standing on the sidewalk. No one was near my porch. But the singing continued. The sound was coming from the side of the house. From the back. My stomach tightened. The back of our house faced the woods. There was a small deck back there with a sliding glass door that led into the kitchen. We kept the deck light off most of the time, because the bulb attracted bugs in warmer months, and we never remembered to turn it on in winter. I tried to tell myself it was some guy walking home, singing to himself. But the voice didn't move. It stayed in the same place, steady and calm, like the singer was standing still. I slowly walked toward the kitchen. The house felt suddenly too quiet, like it was holding its breath. When I got to the kitchen, I didn't go straight to the sliding door. I went to the little window over the sink first. I stood off to the side, then leaned just enough to look out. The deck was empty. No one was standing there. But the singing was louder now. And it was definitely right outside that door. "Round yon virgin, mother and child." I backed away so fast I nearly hit the counter. My heart was pounding like it wanted out of my chest. The logical part of my brain was scrambling. How could the voice be right there if no one was there? Unless someone was standing close to the door, just out of the window's angle. Or crouched down. I didn't want to look again. But I did because fear makes you do stupid things. I stepped back toward the sink, forced myself to breathe, and looked out again. This time I saw something. Not a person. A shape. Right at the edge of the deck, near the steps that led down to the yard. It was dark, blending into the night. But it wasn't moving like a shadow. It was someone. standing perfectly still. I couldn't see the face, but I could tell the head was tilted slightly upward, like they were looking toward the house. And they were still singing. Except the words weren't right anymore. They sounded wrong. Silent night, holy night, open the door, and turn off the light. My blood turned cold. I stumbled back, my legs shaking. I grabbed my phone and called Mark. He didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. I wanted to scream at myself for not locking the back door earlier. Then I remembered it was a sliding glass door, and we always locked it. Always. The singing stopped. For a few seconds, everything was quiet. Then I heard a sound that made me grip the phone so hard my hand hurt. A gentle tapping on glass. Tap, tap, tap. It was slow, like someone was doing it with a fingernail. I backed into the living room, keeping my eyes on the kitchen like it was going to bite me. Then the tapping moved. It slid along the glass, like fingers dragging. And then the voice came again, but it wasn't singing now. It was whispering. I couldn't make out the words at first. It was too soft. So I crept closer, barely, like an idiot, and listened. The whisper came clearer. I can see you. I felt something inside me drop. Like my body had just accepted that I was in danger. I ran to the hallway closet where we kept a baseball bat. Mark insisted we have one. Just in case. I grabbed it so hard the wood felt slick under my sweaty palms. Then I did the only thing I could think of. I turned every light in the house on. Kitchen. Living room. Hallway. Bedroom. Bathroom. The house lit up like a Christmas display, bright and harsh. The whispering stopped. I stood in the living room, bat raised, staring toward the kitchen. I heard footsteps on the deck. Slow. Heavy. Then the sound of someone going down the steps and crunching through snow. I went to the front window, pulled back the curtain, and looked out. Nothing. Just the empty street and snow. For the next hour, I stayed on the phone, calling Mark again and again until he finally picked up. Babe? He said, sounding tired. What's wrong? I tried to explain, my words tumbling out messy and panicked. He got quiet. Then he said, Lock yourself in the bedroom. I'm coming home. I did. I sat on the bed with the bat across my lap, the lights still blazing, listening for any sound. Mark got home about 20 minutes later. He came in the front door and called my name. I ran out, almost crying from relief. He hugged me and asked me to show him where I'd seen the person. We went to the kitchen. Mark looked out the sink window. The deck was empty, of course. But when he opened the sliding door and stepped out, he stopped. He slowly bent down near the door track. What? I asked. Mark didn't answer at first. He just pointed. I leaned forward and saw it. In the thin line of snow that had blown onto the deck near the door, there were marks. Like someone had been crouching there for a long time. 2 deep impressions where feet had been planted. And right beside them, handprints. Pressed into the snow, fingertips clear. Whoever it was had been crouched low, right under the window. Close enough to hear me breathe. Close enough to watch me. Mark searched the yard with a flashlight, following footprints that led from the deck down into the woods. But they didn't go far. They stopped at the edge of the tree line, like the person had stepped off the trail and vanished. We called the police. They came, took a report, and did a quick patrol. They told us it was probably a prank. But I knew better. Because the next morning, we found something hanging from the doorknob of our back door. A little paper tag, like the ones you put on Christmas gifts. It had one word written on it in neat handwriting. Soon. We moved out 2 weeks later. And I wish I could say that was the end. But on Christmas Eve, after we'd already packed most of our things, Mark was at work again, and I was in the empty living room when I heard it. From far away, from the woods behind the house. Singing. Soft and cheerful. Silent night, holy night. And somewhere in that song, I swear I heard my name. I used to do seasonal work at a department store in the mall. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid decent money, and during the holidays they always needed extra help. This happened when I was 21. I was hired to work the late shift. Closing time during December was 11 p.m., and after that we'd spend an hour cleaning, restocking, and getting the store ready for the next day. The mall itself felt different at night. During the day, it was loud, bright, full of music and people carrying bags. But after closing, it turned into this echoing, empty place with dim lights and long corridors that seemed too wide. Most nights it was fine. Annoying, sure, but fine. Until the night we found the Santa suit. Let me explain something about the store layout. Our department store had a storage room in the back, behind the employee-only doors. It was a big space with shelves, boxes, extra mannequins, and seasonal decorations. There was also a smaller room inside the storage room, kind of like a closet, where they kept more expensive items locked away. The storage room always creeped me out. Not because anything had happened, but because it was always cold, and it always smelled like cardboard and dust, and the lights flickered like they were on their last breath. One night, around December 18th, I was assigned to put away returned items. I had a cart full of random stuff, sweaters, toys, scarves, and I had to take them back into the storage room and sort them. I was alone back there. The other employees were out front, counting registers and cleaning. I pushed the cart through the swinging doors and into the storage room. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me. The air felt stale. As I walked past a row of shelves, I noticed something hanging from one of the metal beams. Red fabric. At first, I thought it was a decoration. But it was too big. Too heavy. I stepped closer. It was a Santa suit. A full costume, red coat with white fur trim, matching pants, and even the hat. It was hanging neatly, like someone had placed it there on purpose. My first thought was that maybe the mall Santa had left it there by mistake. But then I realized something. Our store didn't host Santa photos. That was on the lower level, near the food court. And the mall Santa didn't go into our storage room. There would be no reason for his suit to be back here. I reached out and touched the sleeve. The fabric was cold. Then I noticed the boots. They were on the floor underneath the suit. Black boots, upright, like someone had just stepped out of them. And right beside the boots, a sack. A big red sack, like the kind Santa carries in movies. My skin prickled. I told myself it was probably some promotional costume the store manager had bought, maybe for an event. Still, I didn't like how it looked. It looked staged. Like a scene. I backed away and turned to push the cart further inside, trying to ignore it. That's when I heard a sound behind me. A soft shuffle. Like fabric moving. I froze. The storage room was quiet except for the hum of the lights. I slowly turned my head. The Santa suit was still hanging there. But it looked different. The sleeve, it wasn't hanging limp anymore. It was slightly raised, like an arm had shifted. I stared at it, my mouth dry. Then the hat fell off the top of the suit and hit the floor with a dull thud. I flinched so hard my heart hurt. I told myself it was nothing. The hat was probably balanced badly and fell. But then, I saw movement inside the suit. Not the fabric shifting from air. Something pushing outward from within. Like a shoulder rolling. I didn't wait. I turned and ran for the doors, abandoning the cart. I burst out into the main store, breathing hard, and shouted for my coworker, Dana. Dana came running. "What happened?" "There's someone in the storage room," I said, voice shaking. "There's a Santa suit hanging back there and it just moved." Dana stared at me like I was insane. But she saw my face and got serious. We went to the manager, a guy named Jeff, who sighed like it was an inconvenience. He grabbed a flashlight and told us to follow him. When we got to the storage room, my heart was pounding again. The Santa suit was still there, hanging in the same spot. The hat was on the floor. Jeff frowned. "Who put this here?" Nobody answered. Jeff walked closer, grabbed the suit by the collar, and shook it. Nothing fell out. No person tumbled to the floor. Nothing moved. He lifted the coat open. Empty. Just fabric. I felt stupid. Dana gave me a look that said, "Really?" Jeff muttered something about employees playing jokes, and told me to get back to work. But as we turned to leave, I glanced down. The boots were still there. And they were facing the opposite direction now. They had been facing toward the aisle. Now they were facing toward the doors. Like someone had turned them. That night I couldn't focus. I kept thinking I'd imagined it. Maybe I was tired. But the next night it got worse. I was closing again, and around 11:40 p.m., Jeff asked me to go into the storage room and bring out extra gift bags from the shelves. I didn't want to. I told him Dana could do it. He said no, Dana was busy. So I went. I pushed the door open, stepping into the storage room with the flashlight from the front desk. The overhead lights were dimmer than usual, like they were half working. The Santa suit was gone. I felt a weird relief. I walked to the shelves, found the gift bags, and started stacking them in my arms. That's when I heard a low sound. A breath. Right behind me. I spun around, dropping the bags. And I saw it. The Santa suit. Not hanging this time. Standing. In the middle of the storage room. The hat was on. The sack was over one shoulder. And the suit looked full. Like a person was inside it. I couldn't see a face. The beard was thick, and the shadow from the hat hid the eyes. But I knew someone was in there. I could see the slight rise and fall of the chest. I couldn't move. My legs felt locked. Then the Santa suit took a step forward. The boot hit the concrete with a heavy thump. Another step. I finally found my voice, a strangled "Hello?" The suit didn't answer. It just kept coming closer, slow and deliberate. My heart was screaming at me to run, but my body was frozen. Then, from inside the beard I heard a voice. It was a whisper, but deep and playful. "Have you been good?" I snapped out of it and ran. I bolted past the shelves, through the swinging doors, and into the main store screaming for help. Dana and Jeff came running again. This time, I refused to go back there. Jeff grabbed a security guard and went himself. When they came back out, Jeff's face was pale. He didn't say much, but he told everyone we were leaving early and the store was closing immediately. Outside, in the parking lot, Dana pulled me aside. "Jeff saw something," she said quietly. "I heard him talking to the guard." "What did he see?" I asked. Dana swallowed. He said the storage closet inside the storage room was open." "That's it." "No," she whispered. "He said there was a bag in there." "A bag?" Dana nodded, eyes wide. "A Santa sack. And inside it, there were tags. Like gift tags." My stomach twisted. "So what?" Dana's voice shook. "The tags had employee names on them." I felt cold all over. "Mine?" Dana hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah. Yours. And Jeff's. And a few others." We called mall security. They searched the storage room and the small locked closet. They found the Santa suit stuffed into a box. And they found the sack. But the sack was empty. No tags. No names. Like it had never been there at all. Mall security checked cameras. The storage room cameras had been down for 2 nights. And the hallway cameras outside the door showed something that still makes me sick when I think about it. At 11:37 p.m., the storage room door opened. And the Santa suit walked out. Not a person in a Santa suit. The Santa suit. Walking by itself. Like it was filled with something invisible. It paused in the hallway, turned its head toward the camera, and lifted a hand in a slow wave. Then it walked back into the storage room and closed the door. I quit the next day. And every December since then, I've had the same nightmare. I'm standing in that cold storage room, watching the Santa suit walk toward me, and I can hear a whisper through the beard. "Have you been good?" I'm not proud of what I did in December of 2019, but I need to say it up front, because it matters. I used to steal packages. Not big stuff. Mostly small boxes from porches, things that looked like electronics or gifts. I told myself I wasn't hurting anyone too badly. I told myself it was just rich people losing stuff they could replace. I was wrong. And the worst part is, I think I was chosen because of it. I lived in a suburban neighborhood at the time. Lots of families, lots of decorations. During the holidays, it was like hunting season for porch pirates. Boxes everywhere. On December 23rd, I drove around after dark. I wore a hoodie and gloves. I kept my hood up and my face down. I saw a house with a huge inflatable Santa in the yard and a porch covered in lights. There was a stack of packages by the front door. I pulled over fast, walked up, and grabbed the top box. But when I did, I noticed something. The box was already open. Not torn open like someone had been looking inside. Cut open neatly, like with a knife. And inside was nothing. Just tissue paper. I frowned, confused, then grabbed another box. That one was sealed. I took it and walked back to my car. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Someone was standing at the end of the driveway. A figure in the dark, barely lit by the Christmas lights. They didn't chase me. They just stood there and watched. I told myself it was the homeowner who'd heard something too late. I went home, opened the box I stole. Inside was a single item. A small plastic reindeer. And a note. The note was folded once. It was written in block letters. One more. That's it. Just one more. I laughed, actually. I thought it was some weird prank, maybe a kid's thing. I tossed the reindeer on my table and went to bed. The next morning, December 24th, I woke up to a sound outside. My doorbell. I checked my phone. 6:12 a.m. Who rings a doorbell at 6 a.m. on Christmas Eve? I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. No one was there. But on my porch sat a small package. Brown cardboard. No return address. My name written on it in the same block letters as the note. I didn't open it right away. I stood there for a long time, staring at it like it might explode. Then I brought it inside and cut it open. Inside was another small plastic reindeer. And another note. One more. My skin prickled. I told myself it was coincidence. Maybe the homeowner I stole from followed me. Maybe it was some kind of scare tactic. But how did they know my name and address? That night, I didn't sleep much. Every time the house creaked, my eyes snapped open. At around 2 a.m., I heard a faint sound outside. Not the doorbell. A soft scraping. Like cardboard sliding on wood. I got up, walked to the front window, and peeked through the blinds. There was someone on my porch. They were crouched down, placing something gently by my door. They wore a dark coat with a hood, and I couldn't see their face. I watched, frozen, as they stood up slowly. Then they turned their head, like they knew I was watching. And even though I couldn't see their eyes, I felt them lock onto me. They lifted a hand and pointed at my door. Then they walked away, disappearing into the darkness. I opened the door after they were gone. Another package. Same handwriting. Inside was, you guessed it, a plastic reindeer. And a note. This time, the note said, Christmas morning. My mouth went dry. I didn't know what to do. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? Someone keeps leaving me toy reindeer and creepy notes. I decided the best thing to do was leave. So I packed a bag and drove to my sister's apartment across town. I didn't tell her why. I just said I wasn't feeling great and wanted company. She was annoyed, but she let me stay. Christmas Eve passed without incident. I almost started to relax. Then Christmas morning came. We were opening gifts around 9 a.m. My sister was laughing, her kids tearing paper, the TV playing a Christmas movie in the background. For a while, it felt normal. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from my security camera app. I had a cheap doorbell camera at my house. It detected motion. My stomach tightened. I opened the app. The live feed showed my porch. And there was a package sitting by my door. A big one this time. And standing beside it, a figure. They were facing the camera, wearing a Santa mask. Not a full suit, just a rubber Santa face with a white beard and rosy cheeks. The figure lifted a hand and waved, slow and calm, like they were greeting me. Then they pointed down at the package. And then they did something that made my blood run cold. They reached up and pulled the Santa mask off. Underneath wasn't a face I recognized. It was nothing. Just darkness. Like a hollow space where a head should be. The mask hung in their hand for a moment, then they placed it gently on top of the package. And they walked away. But as they walked off the porch, their head turned toward the camera again, and I swear I heard a faint sound through the phone speaker. A whisper. Merry Christmas. I dropped the phone. My sister asked what was wrong, but I couldn't explain. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold anything. I told her I had to go check on something. I drove back to my house, heart pounding, the whole time telling myself it had to be a prank. A costume. A trick of the camera. When I got there, the package was still on my porch. The Santa mask was on top. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. The rubber felt cold, like it had been outside all night. Then I turned to the package. My name was written across it. And beneath my name, in the same block letters, it said, "Open me." I brought it inside. I set it on the table. I didn't want to open it. Every instinct told me not to. But my hands moved anyway. I cut the tape. Lifted the flaps. Inside the box was nothing at first. Just tissue paper. Then, under the tissue paper, I found a small object wrapped in clear plastic. I pulled it out. It was a phone. My phone. The one I had lost months earlier and assumed I'd dropped somewhere. My throat tightened. I turned it over. There was another note taped to the back of the phone. It said, "I saw you." My hands started shaking violently. I dropped the phone like it burned. Then I heard something. A sound from inside my house. From the hallway. A slow creak. Like someone stepping on the floorboards. I froze, staring into the dark hallway. The creak came again. Closer. And then I heard a voice, soft and amused, coming from somewhere I couldn't see. "You owe me one more." I backed toward the kitchen, grabbing the biggest knife I could find, my whole body trembling. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice breaking. No answer. Just a quiet chuckle. And then, silence. I waited for what felt like hours, knife raised, listening. But nothing else happened. Eventually, I ran out of the house and went straight to the police. They searched the place. They found no one. They told me maybe someone had broken in and left the package. Maybe I'd left a door unlocked. I moved out that week. I stopped stealing that day, too. Completely. I never touched another package in my life. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. A year later, on December 25th, 2020, I woke up to find something on my apartment doorstep. A small package. No return address. My name written in block letters. Inside was a single plastic reindeer. And a note. One more. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.